lies and junk. Let's investigate it, let's debunk. Let's debunk, let's debunk, let's debunk. Who production study pride? Fake hauntings just won't survive. Let's seek the truth and get it right, and debunk those lies hidden in the night. Let's debunk, let's debunk. Who Productions, here we go. Bringing you the truth about the paranormal. Not letting the fakers spread lies and junk. Let's investigate it, let's debunk. Let's debunk, let's debunk, let's debunk. Who Productions study pride? Fake hauntings just won't survive. Let's seek the truth and get it right, and debunk those lies hidden in the night. Let's debunk, let's debunk. Productions, here we go. Bringing you the truth about the paranormal. Not letting the fakers spread lies and junk. Let's investigate it, let's debunk. Let's debunk, let's debunk, let's debunk. Who Productions study pride?
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back on a Monday evening to our little show that we do. Let's go ahead and say hi to everybody real quick because we want to get our guest on, because I think you guys are going to find this fascinating. So hello, Chris Williams, who was first in here. Cree Storm, how are you? Fantastique Publishing, member for 11 months. We thank you for that. She was the very first one.
So crazy. It's been that long.
Yeah, yep. So Cree, Caroline, how are you? Pomp, hello. William Wyland is here. Hello, William. If I missed people, guys, I apologize because I am going to fly through this.
We have somebody
Joe is here.
new in the
Entity 7.
chat.
We've definitely got some new people in here.
A
Carla,
Shelley
how are
Day.
you?
I don't know if you saw that one.
Monica is a new, I believe it's the same person. She's a new member. She's like binge watched all kinds of stuff. So we appreciate you going back and watching our old stuff. Michael Burkeen, hello.
Isn't that
Calamity?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay. If I said your name wrong, I apologize. Anita's in the house. How are you? Okay, guys, everybody stop talking so I can get to the bottom. Shelley Day, my bad. You guys, I can't see. You guys know this, so I'm a shit ghost hunter.
Because you just won't go get new glasses.
I know I need to do it. It needs to happen, people.
Eventually.
Needs to happen. Candy's in the house. Thank you to Candy, one of our mods. She's a mod for everybody. She's awesome. All right, I'm trying to get to the bottom. Let's get that. John Stepp.
Christy Keating.
Okay, Dana said Christy. Are we there? Are we there? Are we there?
In your dreams.
Okay, we made it there. So good. So yeah, we want to bring on our guest because he was kind enough to come back on. I had him on the Warren Files about a year and a half or so ago, and I think 8 people watched it. I told him we have a completely different audience now. A lot of people do the rewatch if they don't catch the live stream. And, we thank everybody for watching. But this is a very, very cool. So when I watched his documentary, this was one of the most innovative things that I'd seen on TV, I think, in years. It was nothing like the typical ghost shows. And there's actual science involved in this with a real scientist. So
it blew me away.
Yeah, it was, and there is nudity in this. I mean, it's all blurred and stuff like that. And it's not about sex. It's not some kind of paranormal kink thing, but go ahead and add him on. So let us introduce to you guys Ross Allison. You were the creator and the guy behind the idea for the documentary, right?
It was, yeah. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yep.
So Parasense started out as a situation where a young man had reached out to me, and he had a situation where he was doing some drywalling in an old brothel. Mm-hmm. And this place had been abandoned since the 1930s, and he was up there alone when something kind of fondled him.
Yeah.
Mm.
And ever since that experience, he believed that whatever that was followed him home. And he actually does live next door to this old brothel. Yeah. And he had a few more experiences that were similar to that. And so they reached out to me. And this was something that I hadn't, or there's been plenty of cases out there where people have been touched by ghosts in various different ways. But when he's telling me this story, it's one of those things where I'm just back to, I have to take people's word for it. When you have such a personal experience, there's nothing you could do to validate that experience.
Yep.
And so it really got me thinking. It's just like, well, could there be something that we could do to validate these people's, personal experience when you say you've been touched in some way?
Right.
And so I started, digging around through, textbooks, anything that I could find, that if there had been anybody that had done some experiments in touch, what can I do? How can I advance it? What can we do with this? And to my surprise, no one had.
Yeah.
No one's ever tried to prove touch.
Yep.
And so I was like, am I really the first to do this? And so it just got me thinking. And for 7 years, I had been coming up with all these different experiments, and I was getting some interesting results with these experiments, but it wasn't enough that I could put it out there to the public and say, hey, here's proof.
So what were some of the early experiments that you started out doing?
Well, one of my favorites.
I know where it evolves to, but let's talk about where you started with some of the experiments.
A lot of it was, one of my favorites is the puppet that I came up with. Was taking elastic string, tying it to various sensitive parts of people's bodies, and that was like the wrist, the back of the neck, even the nipples. And what you do is you stretch that string and tie it to somewhere across the room.
Yeah.
My idea was, it's kind of like extending the nervous system. Now, if anything pass through or manipulate this string in some way, you would feel it. And so something was happening. People were feeling this vibration, this tugging sensation. And it wasn't just with, one subject, it was with various different subjects. They were feeling these sensations. And so
is any of that on video? Like, did you do anything with that stuff that people can watch? Or
there is an introduction to it in the documentary.
Okay.
I do briefly talk about it. But the documentary is kind of like our origin story of where we were going with it. And so as we were trying to continue with more filming, we wanted to, develop the science behind some of these experiments that I was coming up with. So as I was saying, I had these experiments. There was interesting results, but not enough to validate that these were, not enough proof, as I would say.
Yeah, because again, it's all like, he said, she said kind of stuff. Like, I felt that when, you didn't prove that they felt it, but, yeah.
So what I did is I reached out to a friend of mine, Chad Goodwin, who was actually a scientist. And I had been on a few of his shows. He was doing a few science shows, and he, thought it'd be fun to have me on. So I thought, well, gosh, we had discussed some interesting ideas of what we could do to advance the paranormal field, but I was really just wanting to pick his brain. I wasn't really thinking that he would want to be involved. I just wanted to say, well, here's what I'm doing. Am I doing this right? What can we do to advance this, to take it to the next step? And so I invited him to join me one weekend. I was going out to Northport where this young man was having these experiences. And I wanted him to just observe, just watch what I'm doing, make sure I'm doing this correctly. From his viewpoint, what can we do to make it better? And so he was watching these experiments, and he was like, oh my gosh, Ross, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You're doing a really good job at what you're trying to do, and yes, there are things we could do to make it better, but this is very interesting, very well done experiments. And so that weekend, he decided he was going to be a subject.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was pretty impressive for me, to have this guy, just come in and observe what we're doing, but yet he wanted to sit down naked and experience this himself. And I know we haven't addressed the nakedness to the audience.
Yeah. So they were somebody wanted to know what documentary are we talking about that was the beginning of these experiments?
I'm going to create a banner so that everybody goes and watches this. But Yeah, it's
So
because that the experience that you're talking about is different than what we actually are supposed to be talking about.
right. So the documentary is Parasense: The Naked Experiments. Um, so basically, and it's out there in a lot of the media streams that you can
it's
look
on
up.
Tubi, I know.
Apple, Tubi, YouTube, Amazon, Google. It's out there. So I guess we should address the elephant in the room first.
Do it.
Naked, the nakedness.
So when y'all see me next time and I'm on an investigation and I got fishing line tied to my nipples, just don't judge me, okay?
So to try and take on the challenge of proving touch, one of the things that you really have to understand is what is happening to the physical body. Does something happen to the skin? Is there temperature variances? Is there something that happens to the muscles? Is there any type of pressure that you can actually see? So some of those things I felt was important to try and document. So of course, you didn't want to have clothes on the individual because you need to see what's happening in their skin. And also, too, if you're trying to validate these experiences, anybody in the scientific field and any skeptic, and you're doing these experiments with people having clothes on, if you're saying, "Oh, I felt something, tap me on my back," and you're wearing a hoodie, they could say, "Oh, who's to say it wasn't your hoodie, your jacket
just slipped
itself
a little bit or something like that."
Yeah.
Yep.
So it just, to eliminate all that stuff, it just made sense. But also, you have to consider the fact that skin is one of the largest, most sensitive organs. And so that opens up a lot more too, because who's to say when you go on an investigation, you were touched and you just didn't feel it.
Yeah.
Now you're opening yourself up to so much more. And so nudity just kind of made sense.
Yep.
And so we just put people out there. They're vulnerable to the environments. We were documenting everything, and they're completely alone. The only thing that's, documenting them is the equipment that we have around them.
Yep.
And so as I was telling go ahead.
I was going to say there's a couple very, very tense moments in that, especially with at Brushy Mountain. I don't want to give it away because I want people to go watch it, but that dude was like running and you guys weren't even close by, right. You guys had your cameras and stuff on him and could see what was going on. But he was affected.
Yeah, screaming and running out of that prison naked.
I believe the experiment was, or the part of that video was titled "The Bitch." So
yes.
And it was in a prison. So you guys can only imagine, and go watch this.
And that was one of my early experiments. That was just if you get to watch the documentary, I really consider the documentary our origin story. It kind of tells you where I came from, some of my early experiments that I've been doing for 7 years, and some of the subjects and their personal experiences.
Yeah.
And the bitch was one of those experiments where just having him alone in this environment, naked, and trying to get some sort of reaction. And the reaction was the fact that, the prison life is a whole nother world.
Yeah.
If anybody who's ever been in prison or worked at a prison or is not familiar with the fact that, one of the things is these men, especially young men that come into these prisons, are treated very poorly,
Yeah. Yep.
And so one of the experiments that I had him do was actually put lipstick on. Lipstick was one way to identify the status that this young man was in the environment, not alone, let alone having to keep your hand in your partner's pocket, to identify that you were taken.
Yeah.
So I had heard that this was one of the things that they would do. So I had him put on lipstick. He sat there and, tried to entice the boys.
Yeah.
And you guys, something happened.
Yeah, you guys definitely did, especially at that location, did actually at all of them. Like you did really well at like trying to recreate how that life was. Like you said, the prison life. I mean, it's a completely different social structure in prison and blah, blah, blah. And you even had other people in there, the guy with the cigarettes, it's currency.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You had him down there. You brought that stuff out. And again, everybody go watch this. This was freaking great. And not only that, so this guy did this the first time and scared the shit out of him.
Oh yeah,
And
he was freaked out.
And you got him to come back.
Yeah, and that was part of the documentary, is to
Right.
to share the story that his first encounter was not touch. Even though
Right.
that's what we were
Right.
trying to document, his first encounter is he saw something
Mhm.
and it freaked him out and he screamed and ran out of there.
Yeah.
So to get him to come back to that location and again expose himself, that was an interesting experiment as well, because on the second time he experienced touch.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we documented that.
Yep.
But as we were talking, I know we kind of went off track here,
Yes,
but
we do that.
you know,
I'm surprised we're not talking about food yet, because it always ends up there. But no,
That dog and
go back to where you were, because we did throw you off a bit.
So as I was talking about, the part of the origin story was how I brought Chad into this, the scientist.
Right.
And so he had followed us on this weekend, and then he had seen these experiments happening. And so he decided to do an experiment himself. So, that alone floored me. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is, great that he's, wanting to, be a part of this and, help us document this phenomena. But to actually put himself out there as a subject was interesting enough, because from his point of view, he wanted to know what these subjects were experiencing.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to him that he had to put himself out there.
Yep.
So that was amazing, that he was willing to put himself out there, be vulnerable himself, and sit there and have that experience himself. Because as a scientist, for him, he now knew what he was trying to capture, what that sensation was. Where do I go from there and try to document that sensation?
Yep.
Was his viewpoint.
Yep. Do you think
so I was just going to say, from there, it just kind of took off.
Yeah. Do you think the vulnerability of being naked, like in front of people and all that stuff, like really also adds to the, like, say, fear element or uneasiness of the people that were doing it? Or
well, I think it definitely can heighten your senses.
Yes. Yeah.
Because just like they say, like being in the dark, naked or not, you're heightening your senses because you want to be aware of everything that's happening around you.
Yeah.
And so it's exact same thing, but now it's another element that you're also naked.
Yep.
So there's another element of vulnerability.
Yep. But I think I remember you saying something too, like in the documentary, that before you had thought of this idea, you really wanted to do something like experiment with fear.
Okay.
Did I hear that, or am I totally wrong?
Well, fear is one of the document experiments as well.
Okay.
You are, putting yourself in that element,
right?
Especially for folks who don't like to be alone in the dark. You're right there. You're triggering something as well. So there is a psychological element to a lot of this, as well as it is with all elements of ghost hunting.
Right.
You have to really be aware of your subjects and your investigators when it comes to the psychological aspect of ghost hunting.
Yep. So Jimmy wants to know, and I don't know if this is a serious question or if he's just joking. Jimmy's a good dude. He'd probably, like, if you need volunteers to do this, Jimmy would probably do it. So how do you go about approaching someone to partake in this experiment? Like,
well, that was a challenge alone, because it's exciting to investigate a haunted location, but then to tell people, well, are you willing to be naked? So luckily, for guys, I was able to find a few guys that were eager to get out there and have those interesting experiences. But for women, it was a little more challenging because, this was more a male dominant environment. And now to ask a woman to come in and, also undress and open herself up to this was a little more challenging. But we found that, we were very respectful. We were very honest with our approach. And we also respected, the limitations as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
I reached out to I wanted to make sure that I had a female member of the team as well, so that when it came to, one of the things that we do is we also document the body itself before the
Yeah.
experiment
Yep.
and after.
Yep.
And so I did not want a female subject to feel uncomfortable with a bunch of guys
Yeah.
standing around her looking her body over. So I made sure I had females to do that,
Mhm.
so that they would feel a little more comfortable. So I had a female, to
Yep.
look over the female subjects, just to make sure that there's no marks on the body that they can turn around
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, that ghost caused that." No, well, we documented the body beforehand and the body afterwards.
Yep. And which
Um,
again, was it, and I don't want to give the part away in the documentary, but I'll let you say as much as you want to about it. But that was very important at Brushy Mountain with the one guy that you guys
right,
got his body on camera, at the beginning, because
right.
it got intense and you guys captured some crazy shit.
We did. We did.
Right.
So it was very important to have that documentation, so that you can, go back, and so when people want to question, oh, this is just the magic of editing, we can, oh, here it is. Here's the beginning and the afterwards. And that's something that we really focus on, being as transparent as possible. So if anybody does question our credibility,
Mhm.
we have the documentations to validate
Yep.
these experiences. Because that's the one thing that's a problem with, with television is, people don't know who to trust,
Yep.
because it is so easy to manipulate the audience. And so we wanted to make sure that when we put this documentary out, that if anybody has any questions, we can answer those questions, even the hard questions.
Because one thing, like I said, we're a big part of the debunking community, and a lot of times people say, well, you put a cut here, you put an edit here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if any debunker ever challenged you, like a credible one, I'm not saying like some guy with 3 subscribers, like, hey, would you be willing to send raw footage to somebody if they ever
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I think you faked this and here's how?
You know
Yeah,
who
definitely.
okay. You know who I
Definitely.
would love to see do this?
Who?
Kenny Biddle.
Do what? Get naked? Oh, I would too.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you
That
know
would be
Kenny
the
Biddle.
best.
Yep.
The best to have Kenny Biddle do this.
Yeah, he's so skeptical. We wanted, so we did an investigation with Kenny Biddle recently at the Monroe House. It's, people call it the Monroe Demon House. It's pretty well known, whatever. We wanted him to get pushed or something so bad, and it just didn't happen, because he's such a skeptic. But
no,
Would be
and
awesome
it's great.
fun to
I
do it.
love skepticism. I'm all about skepticism
Yep.
and all about debunking, because it helps to keep us honest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I feel that we do not hold the investigators accountable for
Right.
their investigations, for
Yep.
their evidence collecting. And it's just unfortunate, because most people in this field are for the attention, are for the subscribers, to make money, to have fame.
If I see demon in another goddamn title, I'm
Oh
gonna
my
lose
God.
my mind.
Yeah,
So,
don't get me started on that subject.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
a whole nother show we could do.
Well, we can. I mean, we can go. We usually go for. I'll keep you as long as you want to be on here, but we usually go for at least a couple hours. But so we've talked about the older version of the experiment with the string and this and that and the other thing. So what kind of science then did Chad bring into the equation?
So one of the things that I have always been more scientific in my approach. I've never been a ghost hunter that says, yes, ghosts exist and you need to believe.
Right.
I still question the phenomena today.
Yep, I do too.
We don't have all the answers. We're still
Yep.
just kind of scratching the surface when it comes to the paranormal. The technology has just started to become a little more affordable and accessible for us ghost
Right.
hunters.
Yep.
But the problem is a lot of it's being manipulated as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole nother show. We're getting
sidetracked here.
No, I think we probably have similar views on the equipment that's used by most ghost hunters.
So
most of it.
So one of the things I've always expressed to people when it comes to ghost hunting, the best that we can do as ghost hunters is we have to have a better understanding of the environment around us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to collect the data of the environment, what's going on in the environment that we can't explain.
Right.
Because again, until we can prove touch, that's still another element that we can't validate.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to take people's word. So it comes, it's the same thing as, when it comes to the environment. We have to have an understanding of what's going on in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no such thing as a ghost meter. So we kind of, so one of the things I've always done from the very beginning, since I've been in this field, and I've been in this field for over 30 years now, I've always believed that we have to record the environment, all aspects of the environment that we can, whether it's light, EMF, whether it's barometer, whether it's, temperature. We have to have all those readings.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I had always been doing. And I had developed a system using a bunch of different sensors that I had put together called the Spectre system. And that stood for Special Paranormal Energy Computer Tracking Research Equipment. I had been doing this for, over 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's going on close to 30 years I've been doing this. And surprisingly, they still don't do this in the ghost hunting field.
No.
All the television shows don't do this. And I had been doing this for the longest time. So I knew that was very important in my research. So when I introduced that to Chad, he's like, oh, that's one of the things that really surprised him was the Spectre system that I was using. This is great. And he's like, okay, but this only gives us a small portion of information. We need more. So he took the Spectre system and he basically did Spectre 2.0 and he developed a 360 setup.
Yeah.
So this basically was a system that you could set the subject in the middle and now you can monitor everything that was happening around the subject.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time in history, we were able to track phenomena.
Yeah.
So with that system, we actually saw, and this is a little bit of information about the documentary, something come at the subject and then leave.
Yeah. Yep. And it just real quick, say again who Chad is, because we've had people join that probably weren't here when you described him.
So Chad Goodwin is a real scientist.
Yes.
He is actually, you can look him up. He basically right now has been doing work in Africa on energy. So, and I try not to say it because I don't want to say the wrong thing, his specific title, but he is a very talented guy, very open-minded, which was very important for, somebody in this field to just be
because
open-minded.
A lot of scientists are complete skeptics. They're like, nope, it's not real. So to find one that's open to working with, paranormal people is really cool.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing, and that's the thing is I think a lot of scientists too. It's not that they're, a hardcore skeptic. I think sometimes they're too afraid to be wrapped up in this field because unfortunately, it's gone so far off the tracks that I think they don't want their name tied to a lot of the problems that we have in the field.
Yeah,
rather than the solutions that we could come up with.
Yep.
And that's where I think, he saw that I was doing it the right way. We both agreed on how we wanted to approach this is we don't want to say, yes, there's ghosts. Right. We just want to show you the data that there's something here.
Yeah, something
what is
happened
it?
At this moment. Yep.
Right. What is it? We don't know. We need more data.
This ties into Cree's question. How do you know that what they felt wasn't caused by air movement, their own, I don't know, nudity? I'm thinking like auto-corrected something or something else. And this ties into the Spectre system.
The Spectre system, which was very important. Because at the moment when they had felt something registered on the equipment. Something was there. Something came from nowhere, came at them, and then left.
And is air movement part of the Spectre system? Like, do you guys track the air flow?
We're tracking barometer. He's got all kinds. I can't tell you all this how he added to the Spectre system. I don't remember everything that he had added to it.
Right.
and he's even advanced it too. We started filming the second one, and he's
Awesome.
gotten some amazing results with the new setup. So I don't know exactly everything that he's got hooked up to it. A lot of it was the Spectre stuff that I had set up,
Yeah.
and then more.
Yep.
So yeah, so
And it was all like primarily environmental factors.
It is.
Were
It's
what's
all
part of
trying
this whole
to
system.
record the environment.
Yep. You guys have to
And
go
he's
watch
collecting millions of points of data too.
Yes. Yep.
One of the things that we learned just by doing this documentary is a lot of the equipment that ghost hunters are dependent on is not fast enough or even sensitive enough
Right.
to pick up a lot of the things that we were able to document.
Yep. Yep. No, and that's what roped me was the fact that, okay, this is it, you know, you show your computer screen and stuff like that several times in the documentary, and it's like the data fields, and then there's glitches in it when
Right.
people say that, okay, I think something touched me, and there's actual, you know, data points that prove that, like, okay, something happened here, you know.
Right.
Yep. So that was, you know, again, everybody needs to go watch this. I've talked about it a lot, honestly, on our channel and our live shows. I urge people to go watch it because to me it's innovative. So you guys are working on a part 2.
We are.
Awesome.
We're just getting Chad tied down for the second one has been, you know, kind of hard. And a lot of it is we want to just do it right.
Yep.
We don't just want to run out there like a lot of these television shows, and just because we were at this location, we have to have something to, you know, show to the audience.
Yeah.
And that entitles them to make up a lot of crap. And we're not going to do that.
Yep.
You know, that's, as most of ghost hunters will know, it's a lot of being at the right place at the right time. So that's a lot of experiments to have to go through and mostly not get anything.
Yeah.
So you're trying to wait till you get that right amount of information, that data that you need to validate that encounter. Yeah. So we're not going to make it up for you guys. I'm sorry.
I'm glad to hear that you said that you're, you know, that you don't always get it. Like you go to places and absolutely nothing happens. That's been, you know, we've done some YouTube investigations in the last year and a half or so, because everything I'd done up to this point has been residential stuff. But like, we go to these places, like, how do I make a video out of this? Like nothing freaking happened. You know what I mean?
That's why it's always surprising when a lot of these YouTube shows, it's like every time they go out, it's always life-threatening.
They get more.
Like, I can't believe I made it out there alive. You know,
they get more in the first 30. They get more in the first 30 seconds than I've had in my entire career. You know, like,
it's crazy.
Caroline wants to know, when is Parasense going to be available in Australia to watch? So
I believe you can get it on Amazon. I believe it's international on Amazon. I'm not sure about YouTube, but you can also try YouTube as well. I have friends in the UK area that has actually been able to see it. I believe they said it was on Amazon.
Okay. Well, but Australia may not even exist. I don't know. There's people that theorize that, you know, it's all bullshit. Like, I'm just kidding. Caroline.
And there's also too, you can get the DVD. You can buy the DVD on Amazon as well. Yeah. So
and again, Caroline, I wish you could, you know, pay a few bucks and stream it or whatever, but like, it's worth buying, in my opinion. This isn't, you're not going to get an episode of Ghost Adventures. You're not getting, you know, Ghost Hunters. You're not getting that. This is a legit documentary. Like I said, I loved it.
I appreciate that.
Cool.
It's been a tough sell, to be honest with you. I've been afraid that the audience has been so far gone because they're so used to watching a lot of these ghost hunting shows that they have an idea of what to expect. And it's not like that.
Yeah. I didn't hear dude and bro enough. I mean, you need to elevate the dude bro count to maybe get people to watch.
What was that? Oh my God.
And everybody will know that it has to be interesting if I watch some of it.
Dana doesn't watch much.
I don't watch a lot of it. So if I watch any of it, you got to know it's interesting. So.
Yep.
Well, again, I appreciate that.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, like I said, just you got to get your dude bro count up to. But no, I know what you're saying. It's sad. People like, they unfortunately they want Ghost Adventures. They want Twin Paranormal. Like, I mean, honestly,
Right.
but there is still an audience for what you guys did, and it just needs to get out.
Well, and that's the thing is I'm hoping that we can at least get more people like you that want to do ghost hunting the right way. You know, unfortunately, most ghost hunters are now what we call lazy ghost hunters. They want the instant gratification. They're so used to devices now that give you that, you know, that response factor that they don't want to spend the time reviewing data logging. They don't want to go back and watch 8 hours of audio or video. They just want that, you know, that information that's going to give it to them right away, and they've solved the case.
Yep. Because like, why spend hours and hours and hours and all this money to do what you guys did when you can get 1 million followers and all you need is the Spirit Talker app? And that will create a story at any location that you're at for you. You know, it's sick. There was so let's go back up to James. I don't know. Did you guys get any funding for this documentary?
It was all out of our pocket.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah.
Then go back to Jonathan. What he said. Jonathan's he's a smart guy. Debunk the junk. In the service, we had a device that would allow us to pinpoint audio source locations within a half-mile radius with 3-foot accuracy. Would love to see actual scientific technologies implemented. So yeah, that would be something that would be.
And it's funny you bring that up too, because Chad, one of the things that he is fascinated with is EVP. You know, when he actually had experiences where something was responding, and he knows, you know, there was no manipulation with the audio, and there was, you know, because he was involved from the very beginning. He was even involved with the editing as well. You know, so he can back up everything. And the fact that, you know, he's experienced EVPs now himself.
Yeah.
That he's been, you know, fascinated with audio, and he has a background as an audio engineer. And so he's like, you know, that's one of the things that he wants to bring to the table, is helping us to have a better understanding. How does EVPs happen?
Yeah. So when you guys go trying to get EVPs and stuff like that, what audio sources do you use?
I use, me personally, a lot of them that I've captured have been the the H4 Zoom H4.
Okay, good.
One of the high-end audio recorders, because I never sacrifice quality.
Good.
Yeah.
Because the DR60 is a big sticking point in the debunking community, because all the
the old Panasonic?
Yeah, that piece of shit. they got recalled because it was
the one that captures the voice of demons. Come on.
and then they put it on the lowest quality setting you can put it on, and it doesn't end well. Apparently you are locked out in Australia, according to Caroline. She is looking everywhere to buy your DVD, everything. Like,
I'm so sorry.
You've been banned in Australia. So we've got to get
well, you know what? If anybody is serious and wanting to watch it, I'm more than happy to buy the DVDs and send them out to them if they want to do that. So just reach out to me, and I'll see what it's going to cost with shipping and handling, and I'll get them out to them. You know,
what is your contact info that people can?
I always encourage people, always follow me on Facebook, Ross Allison Ghost Hunter. That's the best way. It's one social media that I do keep up on. And so you can just reach out to me through that, or aghost.org.
Yep.
The Advanced Ghost.
Yep.
You can reach out to me through that website as well. That's our website.
Yeah, guys, only do that, please, if you cannot get it anywhere, and because it's available, inexpensively for everybody else, but apparently Australia.
Well, and he'll know because if it's in the U.S., he knows he can get it.
Send it to me at in West Virginia, because we're banned.
Because it looks like the only place that they can't get it is actually Australia.
That's crazy. I wonder what the reason is. That's weird. So yeah, somebody said the DR60.
Something with SAG.
Yeah, it's probably SAG's fault. It's the guy's fault. So Yeah, you said too. So have you ever reached out to the side-eye guy or anything? Yeah, I mean, you said we said this off camera that you've reached out to some of the debunkers and really, unfortunately, none have gotten back to you. But I'm going to see if I can, kind of change that because I think,
Looks like Canada
I
too.
think that would be a good conversation for you and like Beardo or somebody to have.
Yeah, no, I'm always more than happy to share my research with anybody out there, especially the debunkers, because one of the things that is really hard when you're trying to put your story together and get your evidence out there.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard with the medium of television or means
Yeah.
streaming or anything like that, because we've already dealt with the fact that there's so many people just falsifying things with the magic of editing.
Yep.
So how can you take anybody serious? And so that's one of the things that I've always questioned is like, well, what can we do as the next step in making that a little more available to debunkers? Because I want them to be able to look at this and be able to say, yeah, I can validate this because I know how these people work.
Yeah.
Or I've seen the information or the data that they've collected. So
and that's the thing too. Like I almost hate that we're called debunkers because it's real paranormal investigators is the bulk of the community. And I feel that you absolutely fit in with them. And like I said, though, unfortunately, some of the YouTube debunkers, if you're not on YouTube and don't have a YouTube presence, they kind of don't.
And that's the thing.
You know what
it's
I mean?
Like I think that's one thing that makes me stand out a little bit more, because I've been in this for, like I said, for over 30 years. I have not been pushing myself to be the number one ghost hunter or the one with the most paranormal experiences. I just didn't have the time to do that, because it is a lot of work to maintain an audience.
Yeah. Yep.
It is. And that was never my main focus.
Yep. And I think too, a lot of these channels probably started out legit, a lot of these really big channels, but then the pressure became like, oh shit, we've got to get this week after week after week after week. You know what I mean? So then they turned it, I'm not going to say faking necessarily all of them, but being lazy. Like I said, the phone apps, that'll give you an episode every week. It will. It doesn't matter where you are. It's going to apply.
They're very dependent on the suggestiveness.
Yep. And you open 3 or 4 of them at a time, and it's like, okay, we got a video. And that's all they care about. Like, I don't even think they care about capturing paranormal evidence. It's just, did we get the video or not? And it's sad. Like it really is. Yep. Do we have any questions in the...
I'm looking, nothing.
So yeah, if you guys have any... Oh yeah, Alyssa's all about nudity, so Alyssa's gonna have to watch. Apparently, she said she can't get those links in Canada.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on?
And she said maybe it's just certain parts of Canada though too, because I know that's like the western part of Canada sometimes can't get stuff in the United States compared to like the eastern part of Canada.
And I mean, just so everybody knows too, everything is blurred. Like I said, this isn't some like paranormal porn, like that's not what's going on here. It's actual real science. So what do you have anything else you're working on other than this, or is this pretty much your primary thing that you're focused on?
Well, when it comes to the paranormal, this is basically the one thing that I've been focused on. I'm always coming up with new ideas for new experiments.
Yeah.
Trying different things, as we talked around, with the puppets, one of the things that we want to do as we advance each, as we continue to do the documentary as a long running series, I should say, because probably can't guarantee we'll have everything once a year. Right. But one of the things that we thought would be a good idea is I bring in one of these, experiments that I've done, and then Chad helps us to advance it. So with the puppets, one of the things we're working on is being able to read the tension in the string.
Oh, okay.
So that we can validate, when somebody's saying they're feeling a vibration, well, there should be some sort of data that we can collect coming off that string. And so that's what he's been working on. is the different sensors that we can attach to the string to help us to read that data.
Yeah, cool. So in the second documentary that's coming out, do you go to different locations or do you guys visit the same?
Oh,
Same ones you
we're
did the
totally
first?
open to visiting different locations.
Okay.
The one main thing is it has to be a location where physical phenomena has been reported.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
another tough thing when it comes
Yeah.
to the paranormal field, is because of the media sensation of ghost hunting. I'm constantly chasing bad stories or
Yeah.
bad evidence, wasting my time because somebody
Mhm.
wants to say, "Oh, I was scratched at this location, and I was pushed up against the wall at this location," and come to find out that never happened.
Yep. Well, I'm going to tell you what, we might actually have a location here in Toledo that might fit the bill. Like we might have to talk off camera. It's a place called, we've talked about it on our show a lot, Collingwood Art Center. And there has been, I've witnessed, and Dana have witnessed a few things where people have been tripped.
The latest one is the most.
Yeah, she passed out.
Yeah.
And she does
Wow.
not have a history of that. We called EMT. There was no medical reason for her to pass
And
out.
it all happened after all our computers,
Yep.
recorders, everything was put away. That's when it happened.
We were
And
packing
we
wow.
actually joked about it and said, "See, nothing's gonna." And Jeff was like, "You're not gonna do anything tonight." And then
Yep.
this happened after we all put everything away.
Because something happens every time we go there. Like we went there for a Paracon, and this stage riser got thrown on two people, which caused us to go down. I was the only one there with a video camera, so me and two other people went down there, and she started getting these like burn marks on her, and like got like choked out, I believe. I'll send you the links and all that stuff later to that video where you can see what happened there. But then the last time we went, like I said, somebody passed out, and she went to the doctor afterwards too. It's never happened before, has not happened since, and so there's something about that place.
I've actually had my like a swirling gray matter kind of like suffocating me, and then I actually had a fake tree stump trip me.
Yeah, it's a gnarly. It's an old convent. And so but it's turned into an art center now. So there's a bunch of, there was a bunch of satanic crap performed there after it was a convent, blah, blah, blah. So, like I said, if you're interested, we can chat. Oh, speak of the devil, Pharaoh Gothgal actually works there.
Has had stuff thrown at them. We'll have to get information.
Yep.
Wow.
So she actually works there, and, just stumbled upon our channel one day. So, could you do a viewing party of it?
Definitely am always open to trying to find places that have legit cases of physical phenomena.
Mm-hmm. It's not well known in the YouTube.
It's fairly starting to get recognized.
Yep. Twin Paranormal's been there, unfortunately.
And they were chased out by demons.
Oh yes.
Always.
Oh yes. Yep, yes, absolutely.
And they barely made it out alive, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think demon was in the title.
Yes,
it had.
Probably.
You know who would be good for this naked experiment stuff though?
Who?
Mountain, once he recovers.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Mountain would be great to do this after he recovers.
Yeah, Ross is like, who the fuck is
Oh
Mountain?
yeah. So for a real quick update, Mountain is still in the hospital and Karen is still in jail. Just so everybody knows.
And Mountain is so a lot of times
Wow.
I like to goof on these channels by making fun of them by being absurd. So I've created a character called Mountain, and he's Twin Paranormal's third twin.
Okay.
So it's a whole thing, and we have fun with that character. So we do really serious stuff on our channel, but then we do some.
And then Karen is his sidekick, who is a Midwest medium.
She's a horrible medium.
He just actually Mountain ended up in the hospital because Karen came home from a trip and caught him cheating with Crystal, who is another.
He's like,
Crystal's on one of our friends' shows, and so they've been having a virtual relationship. And Karen found out and ended up putting Mountain in the hospital.
But see, that's the thing. I don't want to mock his work by having mountains sitting there with fishing flying tigers, nipples and stuff, but that kind of would be funny. But no, we won't do that because no, we do. Like I said, I said it in the beginning, and we constantly get people popping in and out. But your work is the most unique thing that I've seen in a long, long time. You and Chad, what you guys did, and it was like we got to talk about it, So,
well, thank
respect
you.
what
And
did.
if anybody gets a chance to see the documentary, one of the things is we want to work with the community. Because as I was just talking about, is it's all about being right place, right time, and that gives us very little and limited data. So it is a very slow process, as you can see, to get the more information we need to have a better understanding of what we are experiencing. So I would be totally open if there are others out there that want to try some of these experiments to help us collect the data to get a better idea of what's going on and how we can advance this. So that's something I'm always open to as well. I'm not telling a bunch of people to run out there and go ghost hunting in the nude. But if we can collect more data and have a better idea of what's working for us and what's not, it's only going to advance us a lot sooner. And that's the sad thing about the paranormal field is we are already going into 20 years of ghost hunting being accepted and being, featured on all these television shows, millions of dollars going into, these episodes. And yet we haven't advanced at all.
Exactly.
It's still
1000%.
the same shit over and over and over again.
I actually think it's gotten a bit worse. Like I really do.
I will agree with you on that.
With the apps and I'm not one like I kind of shit on some of the devices that come out, that you buy at your Ghost Stop store and stuff like that. But I do think sometimes too that they can work. But I think most of the time, it's
even when it comes to the spirit box, the origin of the idea comes from what's actually called RVP, radio voice phenomena. That's another thing that I get annoyed when people call it EVPs. No, that's RVP.
Gotcha.
That's when you're getting the vocals from the radio.
Yeah.
So that was actually a phenomena that goes back to, I believe, the 60s. When they believed that they were capturing voices on just static on a dead station.
Yeah.
And they thought that this was communication from the dead. And so that was not sitting there with your car radio twisting the knob, back and forth to try and talk to spirits. That was just listening to a dead station, just that static, that white noise, and claiming they would hear voices come through it.
Yeah.
Now the system has been so manipulated in so many different ways that you can't even validate if you were capturing something paranormal. I'm not saying the phenomena can't happen, but we are not taking the steps necessary to validate that phenomena. I've always said, if you're going to try and prove that spirit boxes are legit, then we have to record every station that's airing that night and then go back, and when you think you got a response, to listen to each and every one of those stations at that exact time, just to make sure it wasn't an announcer or a song or anything like that was coming through.
That would be a very, very difficult experience.
And very time consuming. Very time consuming, and no one wants to put the time and energy into it.
Right. Yep. Well, because it doesn't. Hours, why spend hours making money when you can do it in a short time with some dumb shit? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying, everybody on YouTube is that way. I'm just saying that the bigger channels definitely squander real investigators. Like there's so many, they have such a bigger influence than we do.
Well, the problem is also, as technology continues to advance, we're now stepping into the AI situation. And that is so easy to manipulate the technology. When you're dealing with Alexa and Siri, where you can ask these devices an intelligent question and you get an intelligent response out of it.
Yep.
That's so easy to put that into devices now and think you're talking with a ghost.
Yep. Yep.
The technology can easily be manipulated and fooling us as paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
That's why we kind of have to step back and go with the basics. And just, say, hey, if you're going to try, for radio voice phenomena, then just go with a static dead station and see if you get a response off of something like that.
We tried that one time. We downloaded white noise, and we were trying to use that on an investigation that we did. What am I doing here?
Hold that up.
Come here. Boo's got to say hi. The back of her head. But we found that I think they put stuff in it, like so that we would capture voices. I don't think that we capture.
Well, there are, and let's be honest, there are people manufacturing a lot of these devices that ghost hunters are dependent on that are manipulating the devices.
Yep, exactly.
There are ghost boxes out there that have pre-recorded audio in them that will play out the audio.
Yeah,
they're devices that use voice recognition, so when it hears you say something, it'll play that back. There are devices that use GPS, so it knows exactly where you are.
Well, like GhostTube, that app, you can't even use it unless you're connected to the internet.
Yeah,
it won't let you use it. It's like, oh, okay, because I have done some experiments a little bit with apps. I'll read that in a second. To where I will write 4 words down on a piece of paper. I don't say them, and I say, if you can really communicate through this app, tell me one of these 4 words on this paper. That's the only way that I've used apps. Because no, if one of those words pops up, I'm gonna because I didn't say it, so my microphone didn't pick it up. You know what I mean? So now we're, that's interesting to me if something like that could happen. What do you think about these? A lot of these people make these ghost boxes that have the reverb and the. Why do they talk so much? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of it is the manipulation of the technology. Again, you have a lot of situations where they're putting in pre-recorded audio that is triggered. And so there are some of them that even cancel out the white noise. So that you only hear the voices. Well, white noise is supposed to be the root of the phenomenon in the first place.
Right.
It's supposed to manipulate white noise so that we can hear them talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's the origin of a lot of this. So why would you want to remove white noise?
Yeah.
Because you only want to focus on the talking, you know?
And those boxes don't shut up. They always say, they're always talking. Like in its sentences, it's just like, what the hell? What to listen
it's
to?
just again more devices that produce suggestive information, and we've already proven through science that how we operate as human beings is we are always trying to make sense of things. One word generators are a prime example of that. I could just throw a word out there to you guys and you'd probably be able to make sense out of it.
Yep. James wants to know, do you find that most of the occult graffiti found in abandoned buildings is 90% rubbish and trying to look edgy?
I would have to agree with that. You know?
I think so too.
A lot of times, a lot of the graffiti is just people having fun.
Yep. And it adds to the creep factor. So, and you can answer this if you want to, or we can skip this. Have you ever had locations lie to you that, they make big claims about their location to try and get you to come there?
Oh yeah.
And then you do research and then you're like, oh, okay.
And that's a big problem in the field today, is the fact that now when I started ghost hunting, I started my team back in 2000 before ghost hunter shows were even out there.
Okay.
I was doing this before even having the idea of having your own television show was even an idea, So when I started my team, we used to be able to ghost hunt and not have to pay a dime. A lot of these places were excited to have a team come out and investigate because they've never had that before.
Yeah.
But now a lot of these places have become so popular that they charge thousands of dollars
Hmm.
to be able to investigate these places.
Yep.
And that's where it's unfortunate because, if they can hype up their location and get more people to spend more money,
Hmm.
then, it makes it more, valuable to the owners of these properties.
Yeah. Yep.
I hate to throw it out there, but the Conjuring House is one of those
Yeah.
places
Mhm.
Yeah.
that, has these big hype stories and all these, I hate to say bad investigators,
Yeah.
pushing those stories.
Yep.
And then if you've actually done your research on the place, nothing. Like,
Yeah. So the last time we had you on, I was a member of the Warren Foundation. And one of the reasons that I left is that um I don't, so if any of my Warren people are in here watching or rewatch, I don't want to offend them, but the Warrens were full of shit, primarily, in my opinion. All of their stories are not checking out in fantastic channels
well,
like
you have to understand that back then they didn't have to compete against the internet.
exactly.
All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
It was so easy to tell a story and get it out there. But one of the things I do have to say is you have to have a lot more respect for the Warrens for the fact that when they were doing this, they received more criticism.
Uh-oh.
So one of the things that, they really had put themselves out there to be criticized more than they were, liked.
Yep.
And nowadays, most ghost hunters, we receive more praises than we do criticism.
Hmm.
So I do have to say, for the fact that they did open that door for us
Yes. Yep.
and
If there
make
was
a level of ghost hunting acceptable.
yeah.
Whether you want to believe them or not,
Mhm. If
the
there was
fact
a
of the
mount,
matter is they took it on at a time when it was a lot more difficult for us to do
right.
it today.
If there was a Mountain Rushmore of ghost hunters, they would definitely be on it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then a lot of people have looked into their stories and even all of the stuff. Like, are you familiar with the Ghost Boy photo from Amityville?
Yep.
Yep.
I'm very familiar with the Warrens. I actually got
Yeah.
to work with them back in the day,
Oh, okay.
just before Ed had passed away, and I was on the same lecture circuit as Lorraine. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things. Like I said, I've never. Yes, when I got into this field, I was always more skeptical and more scientific in my
Right.
approach in the field. They had always been more into the psychic elements, into the demons, the religious aspect
Mhm.
of it. So for me, I had always had a step back from their approach when
Right.
it came to the paranormal. But I had the respect for them because they opened this door for me.
Mhm.
They were the
Yeah.
first I was able to reach out and say, hey, I want to do this too.
Mhm.
And yes, I know a lot of this has come to the point where now it's easier for us to debunk claims, fact check a lot
Yeah.
of this information, and that's great.
Mhm.
I am so 100% behind that.
Right.
But it's a tough thing. I want to. Part of me wanted to believe
Mhm.
what they brought to the table, but then as you start to do your own research, you don't have to believe what everybody else has to
Right.
say. I would say do
Yep.
your own research as well.
Mhm.
um it makes it tougher to accept
Mhm.
everything that they brought to the table.
Right. Right.
you
And
know
that was it for me. Is that so there's a couple channels out here that I watch that are have done a lot of research and they have receipts on a lot of their cases.
Mhm.
But sometimes too that debunkers get crap for if you criticize an aspect of somebody's investigation, everybody thinks you're attacking them. It's like, no, I just disagree with
Right.
with this claim and whatnot. So we had a question here. Is there any devices that's actually been made specifically for capturing ghosts, in your opinion?
The legit
Yeah.
devices?
Yeah.
No.
I don't think so.
No, there's no such thing as a ghost meter.
But you,
Until we have a better understanding of what a
Mhm.
ghost is and what a ghost is made of, we are
Right.
always going to have to just have a better understanding of the environment.
Hmm.
That's the start of it all.
Yep.
We need more data. We need to have a better understanding of this, and we don't. We
Right.
really don't.
Yep. And that's what I like about that, the Spectre thing that you guys came up with, because it's not like this is a ghost detector. No, it's a barometer. It's a humidity. It's, it measures the environment, and if
Right.
there's changes in it, and that don't make sense. So it's
Exactly.
I like to use equipment that like a FLIR camera. It's meant
Yep.
to detect
Them.
thermal. It's not been
Right.
altered by a ghost hunting company to find a ghost. It does what it's meant to do. You know what I mean? So
Well, even EMF, I
yep,
think we're running down the
right.
wrong road being dependent on EMF detectors.
Yep, I agree.
No, when we were using the Spectre system, EMF was one of the things that we hardly picked up on anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's when did at what point did EMF equal ghost? You know what I mean? It's because so much equipment
Well,
is based on EMF.
it comes from the fact that it was just the early studies of trying to understand the environment. And EMF detectors were developed to actually understand how much EMF was in the environment when cell phones came
Mhm.
about. And there was all those rumors that, oh my God, cell phones were going to give you tumors because it's
Yeah,
pumping so much EMF into your brain. And so that caused a lot of fear. And so a lot of
yeah,
that just was using, ghost hunting in the very beginning was done right. I think they were
yeah.
trying to do the right thing. All
Hmm.
right. So here is another device that helps us to understand our environment. It was a new device.
Yeah,
And yes, we were getting some interesting results. I'm not saying that don't use EMF devices.
yeah,
There could be something to it, but
hmm,
don't be dependent on them.
yeah. Don't freak
And
out every time
so,
it goes off.
yeah. And so, exactly. So here was this device, one of the new devices into the field, technologies available, interesting readings. So we bring it
Hmm.
to the table. This could
Yep.
be the answer to ghosts. But
Yep.
as I said earlier, as more and more technology becomes available and affordable, because a lot of this is coming out
Yeah.
of our own pockets. I remember when I wanted a thermal camera back in the day, they were thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
dollars.
Yep. Yep.
Now you can get one for, a couple of $100.
Hmm. Yep.
So as more of this technology becomes more available to us, we'll start to get more answers as long as there's more people like us willing to collect the data.
Yep. And it's kind of funny too, because I think we talked about this off camera. The DR60, like, that is a piece of shit recorder, and
Yeah,
yet that is what costs thousands of dollars now. Did Bubba fart?
that's ridiculous
Yeah,
what
he
they're
did.
Oh
charging.
my God! Did you guys hear that? Bubba farted on stream. The dog. Jesus, that was a good one, dude.
Well, the first one, it wasn't him because he wasn't in here.
Right,
But that
but
one
that one was,
was.
and I honestly I thought that was you. Sorry, I'm just like, good job, Bubba.
You might
Um,
have to turn the camera off for a minute.
no, you're not going to beat me up again.
I didn't beat you up.
You did that earlier this week.
No, I didn't.
I know. Whatever.
Mountain might have
Yeah.
got beat up, but I
So,
didn't do it.
what are some things in your opinion that, like, paranormal investigators could do that doesn't break the bank when they go out and investigate?
Well, I've always said the most best trusted equipment is going to be video and audio.
Mhm.
Because as long as you know how you operate as a paranormal investigator, and you know that when you're collecting possibly EVP and you have a fully controlled environment and you get those responses, it just makes it all worthwhile.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I still think that the visual and the audio is still going to be important to capture, because that's mostly what we experience,
Yeah.
is something visually or audibly
Mhm.
when we
Jeff
have
doesn't
these
like.
encounters.
Yeah, Jeff doesn't like what I use.
She was
I use a
yeah,
pen
God
and
damn it.
pen and paper.
I was like, can you
Hey,
carry
pen
a
and paper is
fucking
great
recorder?
too.
Yeah, but I'm like, can you carry a recorder and talk into it so that I can like follow this later? Because you guys have never seen her notes. They're like,
But
okay.
see, I go back and after I go back and I look at my notes, but then because I'm a medium. So I write down what happens and then I go back and I write exactly. No, it's just written quickly just for my refresh. And so he gets mad because I can't, I have to rewrite them.
Yeah,
otherwise
it makes no
nobody
sense.
can
Well,
understand them.
It's like trying to read Chinese.
Well, I can understand that, relate, and I can be on your side because one of my books that I put out was My Haunted Journal, which explains the importance of journaling.
Yeah.
Even writing everything down on pencil and paper, because you can't be dependent on technology. Technology fails us.
Yeah. Yep.
And then when you're dependent on memory, your memory fails you as well.
Yeah. And
so it is important to have the true raw data to back up your feelings, your findings. We even have our clients journal everything down because when I do my class on psychology for the ghost hunter, one of the things that you have to understand is when clients have an experience, they want us to believe that they had that experience.
Yep.
They're not intentionally trying to lie to us.
Yep.
They believe something happened, and as they try to convince us of that belief, they will exaggerate things.
Mm-hmm.
They will forget details.
Yeah.
So having people journal everything down just gives you some raw data to go back and look at.
And so
journaling is extremely important.
Yep. We do that too, and we found that like, okay, you're not serious if you're not willing to do that. Because if people want help, they're going to be willing to do that journaling that you ask them to. If they want to put no effort into it, like we're not magicians, we can't come in and kick a ghost out of your house and you just go about living the way that you lived. You know, it doesn't work that way. It's not like that. You're going to have to do some work, and if they're not willing to do the work, and we always start with that too, is the journaling. How much of your stuff is residential based? Like, do you do a lot?
I need a recorder.
Hang on. Right here. Here.
Is it on? Is it turned on?
No. Hang on 1 second. We've got, speaking of.
Hello?
Hang on 1 second.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Okay, sorry. We've got a case.
I just wanted to.
I can't talk about it right now. But it's gnarly, and it's like, honest to God, made me want to quit residential stuff because of what's going on. Eventually, I will tell the story, and that this was a hot phone call from this case. It's been draining for 4 days. It
is tough when you're dealing with residential situations because it almost puts you in a situation where you have to be a counselor.
Yes, exactly. There's not a fucking ghost involved in this case. If like I said, I got to be careful what I say because it's turning into a police matter.
But even to go with that information, here's the problem we have in the paranormal field. Even if you go in and you debunk everything that client claims to experience as paranormal, there'll be another group that'll come in and go with them and say, yes, you have demons.
And that's what happened.
And that's where
those groups came in before us and contributed.
I've been in situations where I've had to talk clients off the cliff because they had a group come in and convince them that their house is full of demons.
Yeah. Yep.
And we've done our investigation and found nothing to validate any of that.
Yeah.
And they were on the verge of trying to sell their home. They even told them, these ghost hunters told them to sell their home. How can you put somebody through a financial situation like that?
I've seen a case where a ghost hunter told a client to burn their house down. Yeah, I shit you not. I couldn't believe it. And that's what, so when I was with the Warren Foundation, we did a lot of cases like that where people had already had ghost hunters and mediums in there and just scare the living shit out of them. And it's first you've got to get them unafraid. You know what I mean? And that's the hardest part.
Right.
So, I'm glad you do this and you approach it the way you do, by the sounds of it, because there's so many bad ones out there doing it.
That's unfortunate because it just makes it more difficult for us who are trying to be very serious and want to have a better understanding of what's going on out there.
Yeah.
when you have to deal with half of the crap that's, being dealt.
Yep.
It's like, oh my God, like I even said, it's hard for me as a paranormal investigator chasing locations when there's so many false stories and fake stories being told about these locations. And it's just a waste of my time because,
Yeah.
I was looking for truth and unfortunately was chasing lies.
Yep. Yeah, that sucks. We're gonna take a quick break here for a couple minutes. I'm gonna, I guess, just put our cameras off for a second. Maybe I'll play that streaming in 2 minutes thing again.
We can play the trailer of Parasense.
Okay, yeah. Where's that at? YouTube?
You can actually find it on our website, touchedbyaghost.com.
Yeah, we'll do that. Sorry, guys. I'm looking for this. Let's see.
Oh, looks like your dog is a co-host.
Oh yeah, she likes to do this. Wait, God damn it, I can't find it. I know everybody can see me, but I can't see anybody. Okay, let's try this. This is dead air and I hate this shit, but okay. I think I found it. Boo, tell them a story while I'm looking for this stuff. Okay, watch trailer. That's what we'll do. Okay, let's share screen. Let's get this over here. Get back to the stream. Jesus, I'm so bad at this. I need a producer. Okay, so present, share screen. Everybody knows I'm bad at this, so they're used to it. Entire screen. This one with the audio. Stop, Boo. Okay, we're gonna play this. How long is this? Do you know?
I think it's a couple minutes.
Okay, cool. I will be back in a couple minutes.
Come in this room. Come touch me.
Touch, one of the five senses we can't live without. It helps guide us through our lives. Touch gives us warmth and comfort, as well as pain and suffering. But what about those stories of people getting touched by ghosts and spirits? People getting scratched and molested by something unseen? How is this happening? Is it real or fabricated? And if it is real,
Are you trying to touch me?
what could it mean?
Even though science has yet been able to prove or disprove these strange encounters, through the years of patterns and consistency, shows us the phenomenon is true.
I think you're on the right path. I think you're at kind of a precipice where you can clearly show that humans have an experience that has an objective piece to it, which at the very least should get other scientists interested in looking at that question.
My whole research process is trying to bring in a more scientific basis. People need to understand that this is not just your bells and whistles that you see on ghost hunting shows. This is real science.
I'm going to really do my best to try to find information and data that suggests that this is a real thing that we're looking for.
It was here in D Block that changed everything for me and for Nick.
I'm ready for it to be open. Hey, you in the corner here touches people. You around here? Really? Scratch me? Oh, I'm gonna.
At the exact time that I was scratched, looking at the larger data set, you can see anomalies in the PIR and ultrasonic sensors. We can use that data to then create an animation showing what happened in approximate real time. So it looks like whatever it was moved toward me and then away very quickly.
When dealing with the paranormal, you have to be prepared for just about anything when the spirits are truly the ones in charge. The question is, How does the body perceive these experiences? What are the cause and effects of when this happens? And most of all, how do you prove these intimate encounters? For the first time in history, our journey into this untapped realm has only just begun.
It's been a while since I've seen that.
I was muted. Sorry. Yeah. So there it is, guys. You guys can see why I wanted to have Ross on tonight, because it's really, really worth watching. Let's see. Alyssa had a question. I'm half trying to hear what she's saying to this person. Sorry. Did you find much of a difference in results or any at all, though, who were more comfortable with nudity at a base level?
No, I think there still needs to be more data collected to be able to come up those variants to find out, whether it's just attitude, whether it is, has something to do with nudity. But I think, we're on the cusp of trying to get that information. It's one of those things that, I'm constantly, questioning the variance. Why does one person get touched and another one doesn't? So it's interesting. It really is. And like I said, it's a very slow process.
Yeah. So Goth Gal says it's on Tubi. Yep, which we knew, and it is. Yeah. So if you don't have Amazon Prime, I don't know if Australia people can get Tubi, but that's a way you can watch it too. So, we are going to wrap this up. It's been almost an hour and a half. Plus, like I said, I will tell you off air what this is about, but this is. Yeah, I'll tell you off air. So we are going to wrap this up, but I want to say everybody go watch Parasense, The Naked Experiment. It's streaming on Tubi for sure, except in Australia because that country doesn't exist. Amazon Prime. Where can people find you if they want to look more into what you're doing?
Like I said, Facebook, Ross Allison Ghost Hunter. I pretty much keep that up to date and do live investigations from that. And so that's the best way to get a hold of me directly through our website. Ghost.org is another great way to get a hold of me. Also, if you want to check out my books, I've written 12 books on the paranormal.
Oh, wow.
We were talking about My Haunted Journal.
Yeah.
You can check out that one. And a lot of my books, too, with David Weatherly, the Haunted series. We actually debunk a lot of stories in very famous haunted locations as well.
Oh, cool. Yep. See,
Yeah.
debunkers will like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, are the books and all that stuff on your website?
You can find them on our website, but I also encourage people, you can go to Amazon. You can find them on Amazon as well.
And if you guys aren't familiar with it, just type Ross Allison author and the books will probably pop up. I'm assuming that's how I find books anyway. So, yeah, cool, man. It was great to have you on. We will have you on again too. So like if part 2 starts to get close to coming out,
or if you just want to talk debunking, I'm all for that too.
You said you got all kinds of stuff to chat about. So we'll keep you on the list of guests to have, because and another thing too, I like to have guests that aren't on everybody else's show. You know what I mean? But you fit you fit what we're doing, and I think more people need to know who you are. So hopefully we do good on the rewatch on this. We appreciate everybody that's been in here. But yeah, everybody share this out. I think this is important that Ross gets.
Well, it's also important too, if you do get a chance to watch the documentary, please post a review. Reviews really do help to push it up a little further, so people will see it.
So I need to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely appreciate that.
About that kind of stuff. I apologize. So, all right, Ross, just hang out for a second in the back room. Everybody, thanks for joining. We're going to wrap this up, and we will see you again next Monday. We don't know what the topic is. Maybe we can talk about what Dana's dealing with right now. So we shall see. So we will see y'all later. Now we're at that awkward ending where you hit it and it spins, and you don't know when.